Hello, my name is Danielle Stewart, and I'm the ESL Supervisor for Russellville School District, and I am making a quick tutorial walkthrough of the ELPA 21 Test Administration Manual. This will serve as training for your test administrators in your building, and also it's a very good review for any building administrators for the 2020-2021 summative ELPA 21 test. Usually I make a PowerPoint to go through, but because there are so many important components this year because of the differences in COVID and things like that, I thought that I would just walk through the actual testing manual with you. You should have available to you upon this training a printed copy or a digital copy that you can follow along with me. I do apologize as I go through this because I will be scrolling through a PDF, so it will not be a slideshow. You'll have to follow along with the pages that are in the actual test administration manual. I also wanted to say that the test administration manual is not the only component of the training. Your building administrator should be sending you a link to sign that you were trained, and it also has a link to the required testing modules that the Department of Education has put out for official ELPA 21 training. So, if you have any questions, my email is danielle.stewart@rsdk12.net, or you can reach me on my office phone at 219-5346, or my cell phone at 479-264-7877. So I'm going to scroll past the table of contents, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the overview for this testing manual. The ELPA 21 test, hold on, I'm going to get to this part with scheduling. Okay, the ELPA 21 test has 4 components on it. It's reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and it has different grade bands. There's K1, grades 2-3, grades 4-5, grades 6-8, and then grades 9 through 12 are all together. What you see in front of you now on the test administration page 4 is the estimated test times for each of those domains per their grade bands. So you can see that the whole testing time could be approximately about 20 minutes each, however 69 minutes for the whole entire thing. I do want to tell you that the test window is January 25th through March 5th. However, your building will get with you on your exact building dates of when testing will occur. It's not a timed test, and so in other words, students can have as long as they need to test. Please keep these testing approximate times in mind because, like I said, because it's not a time test, the kids can have as long as they want, but these are estimated times. You might want to consider the times for the instructions, given that each single domain will have their own instructions. So we'd like to have test administrators can plan for 5 minutes of in-test instructions at the beginning, or 20 minutes of instruction for all 4 domains. It depends on how your building's going to do that. Domains can be administered as a single session, or they can all be done the same day. And because of COVID, your building will let you know how we're going to do that. There's no maximum number of days for a test. So if a test is started one day, as long as you finish that domain, you can start the next domain the next day. But you do have to have one test in a single day. So, for example, if you start reading, you have to finish reading that day, but you could do the next domain the next day. So here are some administrative considerations when you're doing the ELPA 21 testing or the logistics or setting up. This is also important for your building administrators. You need some adaptive furniture. You need breaks built in sometimes people do a testing divider or study carrel. Especially with COVID, you may feel more comfortable having something covering the students when they take their masks off to do the speaking portion. You want to make sure that they're 12 feet apart without their masks. Look at the light, the acoustics, the time. You may have to repeat or reread directions, seat location, proximity. Like I said, we need to be careful of the 6 feet apart for COVID. And then, of course, the only accommodations that occur for ELPA 21 are those that are for IEPs. So there will be no reading of the test, things like that for ESL students, because obviously that's the point of the test. So get with your building administrator to see which students need which accommodations for IEPs. So here is the recommended test proctor ratio for the summative test. This year, I want to reiterate too, if I haven't already, that kindergarten and first grade typically have a paper portion of the test, and this year they will not have a paper portion of the test. It will be online only. And so the ratio is about 1 to 5 students to 1 to 2 TAs. I know that's a little hard to see the word TA because it's in black, but so that means you need 1 certified teacher per 5 kindergartners. It's the same for grade 1. Grades 2 through 3, it's 8 students to 1 TA. 4 through 5 is 10 students to 1 TA. Grades 6 through 8, you can have 15 students to 1 TA. And grades 9 through 12, you can have 1 TA to 20 students. Something to keep in mind too is that if, for example, in 9 through 12, if you wanted to have a room full of 40, that would be okay, but 2 TAs need to be available in the room for each of those 20 student pods. You cannot test like grade bands in the same place at the same time. So grades 4 through 5, that would be pretty easy because they're different. But for example, when you get to junior high, 8th grade cannot test with 9th grade because they're in different grade bands. So the required materials, you'll definitely need your test administration manual, which you're looking at right now. You'll need the test tickets if they're being used. And then you'll need an accommodations manual if you have that IEP group. You'll need the directions for administrations. It's called the DFA. You'll need paper, pencil, braille, any of those things that you might need for those IEP. You'll also need scratch paper. You'll need headsets with working microphones. Always best as you're setting up for testings, building administrators, to make sure that the microphones are working with their headsets. And we'll talk about the practice test here in a second. You need access to a mouse. I know the secondary students are used to using their laptops, and that's okay. However, if you do have a student that requests a mouse, it'd be best to be able to provide that. Pardon my scrolling here. So there is a practice test for ELPA 21, and you'll see that on page 8 of your manual. When you practice with your ESL students, this may be done in either the Language Academy or the ESL class. They need to practice scrolling down across the screen, moving from screen to screen, answering multiple choice questions. There's lots of drag and drop questions. You need to practice speaking and then stopping, re-recording. All of those components are really important for you to practice with your students when they do the practice test. And the practice test link can be also found in the this manual that you're reading. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing the practice test is that it will only have limited questions. It's not like other standardized tests that has an abundance of questions. It's really to get the students more familiar with how to navigate the test. Something to keep in mind if you are a test administrator for young grades, it is okay to be able to help them navigate the computer. For example, if they point to something on the screen and they say, yes, that's the answer I want, you can, as a test administrator, click on the answer that they're saying or help them, show them how to navigate it. You're just not allowed to help them find the right answer or give them clues to the right answer or give them native language instructions to find the right answer. It's really about you helping them navigate the technology. Even when they're elementary, you are allowed to do that. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that. As I scroll, providing help during administration of tests, the TAs are allowed, like I said, to assist students with the navigation and test buttons, but they're not allowed to suggest answers. That's what I just went over. So just be careful that you are just helping with the technology part. So there are unlimited recordings and replays. The speaking test, the students may record their spoken responses 2 times, though, and then it will make them go on. So when you do the practice test or when you're in the real test, you need to make sure that they know that the use of the recording more than 2 times will not be considered a testing irregularity. The listening test, students may listen to a stimulus, passage, questions, prompts 2 times, and then the accommodated version for students with IEP is unlimited replays. So just to recap, unless that was a little confusing, let me clarify. If you have an IEP, you have unlimited recordings and replays. However, within the speaking and the listening test, unless you have that accommodation, then it is limited to 2. So make sure when you're practicing, you let them know that. Okay, here again, if you're looking through on page 10, here is the login to the practice test and the overview if you need this. It discusses also pausing a test. Students can pause their test at any time. They will be presented with a warning message asking them to verify that they want to pause the test, but they can pause it. This is for emergencies. I have to go use the bathroom right now, things like that. But if a student's test is idle for 20 minutes, the system will automatically pause the test and log them out. If it logs them out, there's no need to stress out. They literally will resume the test by logging back in. So the TAs will help them log back in. All of the answers are automatically saved. Students don't lose any answers when the test is paused. So as soon as they log back in, it'll pick right back up where they left off. So sometimes that will stress people out. Don't let it stress you out. It will take them back exactly to where they left off. They just can't go back to any of the previous tests. Also, if you are looking for how to log on to the actual ELPA 21 portal, right there, it gives you the link. So if you're looking at this on paper, you may need to access a digital copy if you need to access the Arkansas ELPA 21 portal. Here are some more directions for accessing the practice test. We do use a secure browser, so that should already be installed on your computers and laptops through the technology department. However, if not, you may need to ask your building administrator for some directions of how to install that secure browser. Okay, so when you go to the practice test, these are just going to be some screenshots of how it will look. Here is the link to the ELPA 21 portal. It will look like how it looks on the side. It will say Practice Test Administration. You'll put your login in, your password. It will walk you on page 12 of the testing manual. It will walk you through exactly what it looks like. Then on the test section for practice tests, it will give you all of these options for which grade band you want to practice test. And then you just simply click Start Practice Session. The session ID that appears at the top of the page will be there. You provide the session ID to the student signing into your test. There it is. It's a training session ID. You will have the students sign in to the practice test because this mimics exactly the way the actual test will look. So all of these that I'm telling you for the practice test will be exactly the same way it will look on your actual summative test. So you'll have the students sign in to the practice test. It will ask them for some questions like their SSID number, the session ID. You need to make sure those are correct. Sometimes with younger students, we go around and just make sure they're correct before they push sign in. And then on your side, it will pop up as student blah, blah, blah is waiting for approval. To review and edit the student's test settings, you can click the I. There's a little I button right there under See Details. Or if you're ready to click them in, you just click the check mark, the green check mark, and it will put the student into the test. And this one's for a practice test. Also, though, if you have a whole list of students, which sometimes you do after everybody enters all of their information in, you can push Approve All Students, and it will approve everybody all at once. So once your students are in the practice test, you will then be able to monitor them just like for those of you who have done it in the past. It will look like this. You can click Stop at any time. You can click Pause. Just remember that if it's more than 20 minutes, the student will be asked to change answers in the current test to match what you have here. Anyway, so when you get done to click Log Out, you just push the Stop button, click Log Out, and the practice test site will close. So here are some examples for the student login and instructions for the practice test. Remember, when you log in to that address right there, the AR portal can be blah, blah, blah. I don't want to butcher the name. When you click that, you will then click on this little button that says Take Practice Test. Okay, and then it's got a little manual for you with the practice test. I'm going to skip this. This is what the test ticket will look like when you give it to the student. That's where that information for the login will be. That's why it's very important. For elementary, you check it for them, and for big kids, you might want to say, look at this information and tell me if your birth date is wrong or your name is wrong, anything like that. So common login errors, first name and the SSID do not match. Sometimes that's an issue. Sometimes the session ID is not available. So if any of that should happen, make sure to contact your TA if you're confused. Your BA. I'm sorry, your building administrator. Anyway, so this more stuff about the practice test, I'm going to kind of go quickly because it's literally walking you through how to do the practice test. This one is worth noting. When you do the recording device check to make sure your microphone's working, it will have them you will push the record mic, you will talk into it, and then you'll play it, and if they hear it, they will prompt them to say, I heard my recording. If they did not hear it, you may have to reinstall the headphones with the microphone. That seems to be a common occurrence if there is an issue. Okay, I'm scrolling, pardon the scrolling. I'm going to go on down a little ways, but remember that all of this is very, very similar to the way it is with the actual test. It will prompt you, it will give you the session ID number. You will be able to monitor your students as those students take it. It's almost exactly the same. So we're going to go through it as in the TA is logging in for the summative assessment, not the practice test, and you'll see it looks almost identical. So once again, you'll go to this website, the AR Portal website, and then instead of practice test this time, you will click on the Operation Test Administration. The login appears. You will choose your group. Your building administrator should have already made rosters for you for your section, so it should be pretty easy to look for your group. They may even already have it set up for you. It will provide the session ID number. You will have the students use their login ticket to enter that information in. They'll put the session ID number in, and then it will prompt them, just like the other one, to check. You will have to check to approve all of your kiddos so their test will start. it will prompt them before, like the other tests, to make sure their SSID number's right, that their birth date is right. So make sure and check all of those. Once your students are all in, this is a perfect screenshot of how it will look. You'll have your session ID at the top. You'll have all of your kiddos listed, and then if you need to pause their test, if they're in the middle of the test, it will show you all of that. It will also show you as they finish each section, so that way you'll know who's still in the test and who's not. If you need to stop all the tests, you will click stop, just like you did in the practice test, and then you will click log out. So then it will have, in this test manual, it will have on page 27, it will tell you all of your directions on how to get in there. I'm not going to re-go through that, but just remember that it looks just like that practice test, except this one's not practice, it's for real. So I'm going to end it there. That's pretty much a good overview of how you log in, how you get your students in there, how you make sure their information's correct, how you monitor their screens, what's allowed and what's not allowed. I would emphasize, though, that you do need to go through all the training modules that are listed on that site that your building administrator has, and then also I would definitely review your test administrator manual that you're looking at now. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Have a good day.